Excuse me.
Excuse me. Tell everyone you've ever met right now, 'cause the bitch is back. Yes, the bitch is back.
Let your Buffy and Angel comfort content begin. Welcome to The Bitch is Back with Charisma Carpenter, powered by Patreon. The Bitch is Back is a first watch podcast of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and its spinoff Angel, not to be confused with a rewatch. Why am I doing this now, you ask? Because I have never watched either show despite starring in 147 episodes combined. And you, the fans, well, you kind of demanded it. If I've learned anything about this fandom over the last 2 decades, it's that community is everything. And I am so here for it. Call everyone you have ever met right now because people, the bitch is back. The harvest. It's the Master's grand plan. A preordained massacre. Rivers of blood. Hell on earth. A combination of centuries of darkness. A ritual that will unleash chaos and perhaps even rewrite the very nature of evil itself. Oh, wow. Sounds ominous. I am definitely going to be stuck with serious thoughts for the rest of the day. Sheesh. Meanwhile, Xander tries to be the funny guy because what's high school without self-deprecating boys using humor to preemptively acknowledge their shortcomings? So I, don't blurt them out first. And Willow, being her adorably fashion-flawed self, has managed to stay alive long enough to casually admit to decrypting the city council security system, which is likely a federal offense. I mean, who knew she had it in her? I'm low-key impressed. Of course, I'll never tell her that. Anyway, this little nugget of info will come in handy in leading the way to find Jesse before the Master's minion nibble on his neck like a little Scooby snack. And for Buffy, she's definitely still figuring out her chosen one mojo. But don't worry, she'll get there, hopefully before I have a wrinkly, translucent ass. Okay, guys, so I took some notes. I was watching the episode, and this is kind of how my brain works. I make bullet points of different things throughout the episode that I have a reaction to, or a thought, or an observation about. And since episode 1 and 2 are two-parters, I've sort of combined this section between the two episodes. And since I had this amazing interview with Julie in episode 1, I didn't have a chance to kind of like do all of my hot takes about the episode. First, I want to start with the opening of the show where the music starts and there's this narration. And the narration reads, "In every generation, there is a chosen one. She alone will stand against the vampires, the demons, and the forces of darkness. She is the Slayer." Does anybody know who recorded that? Who performed that voiceover work? I'm dying to know. Was it James Lurie, Tony Real, or Real? I'm not sure on the pronunciation. Or was it actually Joss Whedon? I listened to it like 3 times. I'm like, that is not Joss. That cannot be Joss. But I'm curious to know. If you go over to Patreon, I would really love for you to participate in the poll. So I want to know who you guys think is the person, the voiceover artist that performed that opening narration that lasted the entire series. So I'm very curious about that. And I thought it was awesome. I mean, the creative minds, to write this stuff is just impressive. But, and one of the other things that I was thinking when I was watching the show, and the thing that makes this show so different, I have my glasses on and it's like not good for reflections, but you'll bear with me, right? One of the things that I thought was really interesting about the show that's different from every other show that was on at the time is the vernacular. It's a combination of 2 things. One, I think it's California culture meets Joss speak. Let me explain. Joss speak is a kind of style of speaking that we figure out right away. And I highlighted a point later on in my notes, and I'll give you an exact example later. But it's sort of like Joss has a way of, most people speak linearly, if that's a word. They'll speak, the thought has a beginning, middle, and end. So Joss would kind of take a piece of dialogue or a thought, and he would just scramble it. He would start with the end of the thought and then explain the thought and support that thought with the rest of the sentence. It was such a crazy way to approach dialogue. And for me, and I was talking to Julie about this in episode 1, I was like, how hard or easy was that for you to adapt to? Because it's a completely new way of speaking. And I struggled with it, to be honest with you, a little bit. It's like my brain was glitching all over. It's like, does not compute. And this is a show where you had to be word perfect. And I have high anxiety, and being word perfect, I'm like, literally, I wouldn't call myself like a people pleaser as much as like, I don't know, I just really want to be a good student, and I'm really committed, and I really care so much. So when things are hard for me, I go into kind of a panic, and I can have some kind of line that I will have to say. For example, story time. In Malibu Shores, it was like the first TV series that I ever starred in. It was Aaron Spelling, and it starred Kerry Russell and Tony Luca and Susan Ward and Essence Atkins and Christopher Campbell and all these fantastic, Greg Vaughn, who actually shows up on Buffy in the future. And then he was also on Charmed. Love him. He's so cute. And my mom adored him. He's a Texan boy, and what more can I tell you? But to stay on topic, when I was on Malibu Shores, it was like one of my first experiences on set where I felt tremendous amount of pressure. And I literally had one line: my house on Thursday. Could not be simpler, right? But my anxiety, my like glitchy brain went to, action. And we're walking down, and Kerry Russell's coming towards me, and we're on a narrow hallway at Palisades High School, on like a balcony on the second floor. And so it's very narrow. So she's coming towards me, and I'm going on the outside, and I'm like, my house on Thursday, literally said every other day of the week except for Thursday. I cannot even tell you. I'm so sure like the producers and the actors and the camera, they were all wanting to pull their hair out. That's how my brain is. I try so hard that I glitch. It's just like, it's I don't know if anybody can relate, but it's like the scariest thing. Another story time I can tell you about my brain glitching is I was at the Thirst Project Gala one year, and I had to introduce an award, and Oprah Winfrey's name came up in the award dialogue. And here I am in front of, I don't know, 500 people in formal wear, like peers, billionaires, philanthropists, Hollywood folks. And I literally said from the podium, Oprah Winfrey. It is so embarrassing that I said that. I wanted to die. I wanted to crawl into a corner and just be the tiniest, smallest person ever. So if you have ever had an embarrassing moment and wanted to die, maybe you can relate. Anyway, back to this. When it comes to the vernacular or the way of speaking, the quote unquote jaw speak of things, I just found it to be a difficult thing to adjust to. Eventually, obviously, I did. And, Cordelia had some of the best dialogue ever. She, like, the zingers were just, especially in episode 1, and it kind of carries over in episode 2. But I mean, those iconic lines, whenever I go to Comic-Con conventions and I'll sign an autograph, often people will say, hey, do you mind if you add a quote? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Which quote? And they're like, oh, what's your childhood trauma? I still say that at work, and it's just so sweet and fun to be able to have that first episode, these iconic lines be established so soon. And that, again, just speaks to the genius of our writing team and the creator to kind of speak to the jaw speak and the vernacular of all. I wrote this sort of like mini paragraph about it, and I'm going to share it with you. It says, another tell that spoke to the originality of the show is noticeable right away. The show's language style sets it apart from every other teen drama on air at the time. This unique language style is often referred to as jaw speak. I spoke to you about that already. Blah, blah, blah. So adept at weaving. This is it too. he was so adept, they were so adept because multiple people were in the writer's room at the time, at weaving pop culture references throughout early seasons, as well as establishing the show's witty, self-aware tone, whether it was nods to movies, TV shows, music, or other elements of 90s culture. These references helped the show connect with contemporary audiences. So, for example, in one of the early episodes in season 1, the show makes reference to the iconic 80s teen film, The Breakfast Club. Okay, that is a personal favorite of mine. It is amazing. In fact, one of the things that I did during the pandemic, this is like story time again. One of the things that I did during the pandemic, my son was, I think he was a junior going into his senior year of high school, and it's 2020. And I literally decided I was going to take my son through every 80s movie that I ever grew up with. And Breakfast Club, St. Elmo's Fire. I also took him through classics, all of Kubrick's films. You know, it was just like Space Odyssey and, what is it, 2001? Just like all these amazing, great films. And one of those films was Breakfast Club. So when I saw that there was, some text that was written about the fact that this is what makes the show so important and so relatable, is that it does make cultural references to movies that were popular at the time. And then Xander makes reference to detention, which is a big part of The Breakfast Club, right? It's like the whole movie. And also the show makes references to Nightmare on Elm Street and The X-Files. Now, I don't know if many of you know this, but The X-Files was also one of David Greenwald's, the co-creator of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, one of his early writing career credits was on The X-Files. I mean, I'm not really too sure like how big of a writer he was, if he was a head writer, if he ran the writer's room, if he was an executive producer on it. But I do know that he was on it for a little while, which was really kind of cool. For anybody who's an X-Files fan, I'm more of a David Duchovny fan, so there's that. But as I get older and the more I watch Gillian Anderson, the more respect I have. She has turned out to be an incredible, incredible actress. So I wanted to give you more notes, some of the examples of vernacular. So here we go. The Wiggins is a cute little reference in the first 2 episodes. It says, Buffy explains to Willow that she doesn't want to study in the library because it gives her the Wiggins. Really what's going on is that she does not want anything to do with the librarian because she just figured out that he is the new Watcher. And she just doesn't want to be the chosen one or prophecy girl. She just kind of wants to be a normal teenager and live her life. When Giles is explaining with urgency and passion that something is going to happen in Sunnydale, something big and soon, Buffy says, gee, can you vague it up a little? Or vague it up for me? I thought that was really cute. And I think I actually have absorbed some of these expressions through my life. I have caught myself saying lines. I'm 55 now, so I shot this, 30 years ago. And I remembered recently saying, don't you have an elsewhere to be? I remember saying some of these words, and it's just weird how the character Cordelia, how the way the show talks and the little expressions, these witty little things. I mean, I feel like to a certain extent, those writers are still writing for my life today, my personal life today. And it just makes me look really smart and witty and more than I really am. I'm just stealing copy. But what I was going to say is when Giles is explaining with urgency and passion that something is going to happen in Sunnydale and she says, can you vague it up for me a while? That's what I was thinking of. Buffy to Giles at the Bronze. So you like to party with the students. Isn't that kind of skanky? I thought that was so funny. Like I literally cackled outside it. So you have to picture the scene. Doing this first watch, I literally never watch a show. And I know different people have said, I'll come over, I'll watch it with you. And I have had that happen. Like the first episode, I watched it with my best friend Maya and her daughter Poppy, which I actually interviewed her on an audio clip, which I'll actually put on my Patreon page so you can kind of hear her impressions of the first episode through her lens as a 12-year-old girl from Arizona. It's really funny. And I'm like, does it track? Does it keep up? And she's like, I go, does it seem like a talkie, like a black and white talkie to her? And she's like, I don't know that reference. It's really cute.
Thank you so much for listening. For the full episode and more bonus bitch content, please subscribe at patreon.com/Charisma Carpenter.